Kia ora, koutou katoa, tēnā koutou. So yeah, I'm Ulla. I am a marine biosecurity scientist at Cawthron, and I wanted to talk to you about how I had really amazing people that became mentors that pushed me all the way along into becoming a marine scientist. And also, as Kath had mentioned, my passion to be on research vessels, because it's just amazing being part of a passionate crew that works every day and drives for the same mission. Again, yes, I'm also German. My journey starts in Bavaria. And it's very weird because there's really not an ocean very close to where I grew up. But despite that, I knew very early that I wanted to become a marine biologist already from kindergarten age onwards. I have like 3 assumptions why that might have been. One is we had a really big pond in our garden, and I spent my complete childhood on this pond, or maybe more in this pond, because on the hunt on all of these, as I find, beautiful creatures like toads and frogs and newts and dragonfly larvae, I fell in this pond like at least 1 million times. I also had a grandmother who lived in Ireland, and I spent all of my holidays over there. Her house was directly on the cliffs, and I went into the crazy cold Irish Sea with my grandmother every day to swim for about an hour and then sit in these rock pools and just look for anemones and all the weird little critters you can find there. And the third one is like a lifelong life for penguins that I have now engraved on my neck, and just like the curiosity of where they live and what they're doing the whole day. So after I finished school, I moved straight away up to the Baltic Sea. It's like a little bit of sea access that Germany actually has to Rostock, and started studying marine biology. From the first semester onwards, I looked for a job as a student assistant because I needed money. And most of the professors turned me down and said, like, look, maybe start studying first and develop a few skills. But there was this amazing PhD student, Petra Novak, who invited me for an interview and who I then started working for my pretty much first weeks of my study life until the end of my master's. We looked into these beautiful green algae that are indicators for ecosystem health, and despite my biology or marine biology program actually not really having an angle into molecular science, I learned all of that from Petra, from like doing PCRs, doing cloning, doing sequencing, analyzing the data. She was an absolutely amazing teacher, and I really loved working for her. So I decided to stay in the molecular field. I had 2 big highlights during my career. One was like being accepted, or during my study times, was being accepted on a research vessel, the Maria Mann Borghese, that you can see here, from the Institute for Baltic Research in Warnemünde. It was a very wild ride through the Baltic Sea to measure nutrient cycles. Most of the sea crew got seasick, but I had the best 2 weeks really, and I made some really good friendships. One of them actually is now with me at Cawthron, another German who is a marine biologist there, Pauline. Another big highlight was being accepted at the Victoria University of Wellington during my master's studies for a 6 months internship here in New Zealand. That was also funded by the German Academic Exchange. And another amazing person here I started to work for is this person in the picture, a Thailand PhD student. He was studying red algae that you can see here, and looking like they come, or you can see them all over the southern hemisphere, and if you look into the genetics, you can actually see how our supercontinent Gondwana split up once in a time. So really interesting subject that I very much enjoyed working in. And Pop was a really amazing teacher too. I really enjoyed my time in New Zealand. So once I came back to Germany, I spent the rest of my master's trying to apply for PhD positions in New Zealand to make it back into this beautiful country as quickly as possible. And so I came along this position in biosecurity that Cawthron, NIBA back in the days, and the University of Auckland had put out there. And it was all about invasive species, quite beautiful as I find again, like these slimy ascidians and bryozoans and tube worms that you can see here. But they're actually quite organisms that you really don't want to have in the country, because once they come on ship hulls or on ballast water, they can become a serious problem. They can overgrow and outcompete the native flora and fauna we have here. So my PhD was focusing on detecting them as early as possible so we can still manage that and do something about it. But as I said, I never wanted to leave the molecular field again after learning all of that from Petra, so I applied environmental DNA as a technique to detect these invasive species. eDNA was back then still in its baby steps when I started studying it in 2015, but now it has skyrocketed, and you actually find a lot of companies around the world that really specialize on this tool. It's really amazing because it's simply based on the fact that every kind of living organism, from bacteria to algae to any kind of invertebrate like the sea stars, dolphins, even humans, shed environmental DNA in form of skin cells or mucus into the water. And we can tow a net or accumulate them in a certain way and put them on a filter and extract the overall DNA and then backtrace it to any kind of biodiversity that has been there. And you don't have to interfere with the ecosystem, you don't have to kill an animal, so it's a really amazing tool. And that is my life until today, really. I'm designing eDNA tools or other molecular assays to detect diseases, invasive species, or having an idea of the native communities that we have out there. It has been a very steep learning curve for me, and I was super fortunate enough to have all the time amazing people by my side again that pushed me forward. One of them is my supervisor, Xavier Pouchon, who with his endless enthusiasm always drove me further and opened so many opportunities for me. Another one was Anastasia Saiko, who I met straight away when I arrived in my team at Cawthron and became a mentor from day one, and she's a mentor until today. Another one was Olivier Laroche, who did his PhD at the same time as I did, and is just always has been there to talk about data and science and give me advice. I mention all of these people, and there have been many more, just to say I'm a person who's driven by teamwork. I drive through the enthusiasm by people around me, and I'm really grateful that I've received that throughout my whole career until today. Eventually I graduated, and I was again fortunate enough that Anna and Xav got this big biosecurity program, the Marine Biosecurity Toolbox, which allowed funding for 5 years, and I kept just working in it, extending basically my PhD topic as a postdoc, and became a permanent scientist at Cawthron during that time. But that didn't mean that the adventures ended. Was really the start of an amazing journey, because I needed to go out and take all of these samples. So I had a lot of opportunities to go on different research vessels. One of them was the Robert C. Siemens from the Woods Hole Institute in Massachusetts, an amazing sailing ship, and this program allowed students all across the United States to apply for a semester at sea. They need scientists on board to teach the students, but we also allowed, obviously, to take our own samples, and that's really valuable because ship time is very expensive, so it's a great win-win situation. On top you see a Russian research vessel, the Stranik, that has an incredible kind and funny captain who allowed us to come onto his research vessel during COVID to sample the remote fjordlands. And that was an amazing time as well. And below you can see the Manavanui, who is up in the Northlands. It's also a German captain. And he's probably one of the biggest experts in false killer whales and can talk hours and hours without it ever getting boring. Another cruise that I have been on was with the New Zealand military that allowed us to go down to the subantarctic island. That program went through the Sir Peter Blake Foundation, and this one is actually for New Zealand students, so you might want to look into this opportunity because they have amazing programs. Everybody can apply for it and then go to the most remote places and have some adventures there and learn about nature. Again, they need scientists on board to do outreach and teaching, but we also took our own samples, and you can see here how the military helped me actually dragging my plankton net across the subantarctic sea, which was very nice. And then about 3 years ago, I was on a big research vessel in the middle of the Pacific that was for more than 2 months away from any kind of land, but with 6,000 meters of water underneath us, and we were sampling the deep sea, just to learn to see what kind of biodiversity we have there, because we actually don't know anything about our deep sea until now. You find these beautiful little critters that you can see in the corner. They're called Xenophytophorea, and they are like the biggest protists in the world. They grab little sediment kernels from their surroundings to have kind of an armor that shields them from the environment. And when you live on a boat like that and you work on a boat like that for several months, you really become family with the crew after a while. And then, as Kath mentioned before as well, last year I was fortunate enough to get funding from the Japanese Science Society and the German Humboldt Foundation to go to Japan. I was in Okinawa in Professor James Reimer's lab. You can see him in the corner lying in front of his students. He was another amazing professor, really, who has like one mistake, that he can't say no to anything. So he's so busy and has a lab of 40 students that he has to look after. But his students are amazing as well. They spend all more time underwater than overwater and like surveyed the complete beautiful reef-associated fauna and fauna there. I was like fortunate enough that I could join them and learn so much from them, but also did my own research on diseases and how they're influencing the ecosystem down there. And that was a bit of an insight of all of the adventures that I've been doing over the last few years. Very happy to get all of these opportunities, but I also have a family in Germany, and particularly my mom is one of my biggest cheerleaders. I keep sending her all of these photos. And even if you're at the end of your 30s, it's still a very empowering feeling to have these people in your back that believe in you and are proud of you for what you're doing. And I very much like cheesy things, so I'm closing with a bit of a cheesy phrase. The sea, once it casts its spell, holds one in its net of wonders forever. Thank you.